May the words of my mouth and the meditation of my heart be delightful, dear Lord, my strength and my salvation. Amen. Won't you please be seated? I am developing a wonderful reputation in this community. I really am, and I don't know if it's the reputation I want. Do you remember when we married Maureen and Alan Levetro about a year and a half ago? Maureen's daughter, Bernadette, was the maid of honor, and Bernadette is the hostess at the Oysters restaurant in Crystal River. Well, I had not met Bernadette until the wedding rehearsal, though I had seen her in her work as a hostess. We sort of knew each other by sight. And Susan and I would sometimes go there after church on Sundays for lunch, and I'd be in my collar, and she'd be nicely dressed. And you know, we'd go out fairly frequently on Sundays after church. Well, Bernadette sees me in the church and for the rehearsal, and she goes over to her mother. I know him. That's the priest I was telling you about who's fooling around with this woman. He takes her out to lunch all the time. You know, priests are not supposed to be married, are they? Bernadette was under the impression that we are like the Catholic Church. So anytime I'm out with a woman, it must be no good or hanky-panky. Yesterday, I went to ABC Liquors in Crystal River. And at ABC Liquors, I bought all of their shot glasses, disposable shot glasses. And the clerk is looking at me because I'm buying 150 shot glasses. So this church really must be living up the high life. We're having a party where we need 150 shot glasses. Well, why do we need 150 shot glasses? Because of the coronavirus. We're going to do things a little differently today, and I wish we could have a party and needed 150 shot glasses. But we're going to be introducing some hygiene protocols. We're probably one of the most well-attended Episcopal churches in the United States today. And I can say that because 2/3 of the diocese have closed. All throughout the north, down in the Diocese of Miami and Texas, have all shuttered the churches for 2 to 3 weeks. Bishop Brewer contacted the clergy, and I think I forwarded it to you, Mary, asking what were we going to do. He sent a letter to all the priests in charge, and I said, well, we were going to carry on, but implement some hygiene protocols, but until we get the word from you, we were going to continue worshiping. And yesterday, I was thinking about, in the afternoon, about what are some of these hygiene protocols. We'd already begun. We're setting up for St. Patrick's Day dinner, so we weren't going to cancel that. But going forward from this weekend, we were going to change coffee hour so that we would only have prepackaged items. We wouldn't bring food that we made at home or bought at Publix and put on a tray. We'd only have foods that were individually wrapped. On Wednesday night, we weren't going to have the potluck dinners anymore. During Lent, we'd again substitute with prepackaged items. That was the plan Friday or so. Well, things have been moving very, very quickly in the world. President Trump declared the National Day of Prayer. And this is not like declaring this is National Air Conditioning Week or National Exterminator Day or something. This is a day, this is on the par of what Abraham Lincoln did during the Civil War. What Franklin Roosevelt did in 1942. This is a big deal proclamation of National Day of Prayer, commending our country to God, that we may have the wisdom and guidance to deal with the threats that are facing us. These are extraordinary times. And I've not really experienced these extraordinary times except on the TV. I turn on one channel and the commentators are telling me the end of the world is here, it's all the government's fault, and things are just awful. And then I turn on the other TV channel and they tell me it's no worse than the common flu, everything is fine, just continue with your daily work. So if you watch the news, you're going to get 2 different viewpoints, or 3 or 4 or 5. There's no unanimity. In the Episcopal Church, we have diocese. There was a big conference in Kentucky, Louisville, at the end of February. 500 Episcopalians those people, all rectors of churches, one in California, one in Texas, one in Tennessee, one in New York, I don't know where the fifth one is, are in hospital with a virulent form of the coronavirus. And in Washington, D.C., this is the first one that sort of appeared in the Northeast. The rector of Christ Church in Georgetown, which has 450 people on a Sunday, it's a big city church. He came home from this conference on a Friday. He worshiped on Sunday. On Monday, he was tested and had the coronavirus because he felt really bad after church, and he must have had a stinker of a sermon or something. And his wife took him to see the doctor. The doctor admitted him into the hospital, and he had the coronavirus. On Wednesday, the organist, who had not gone to the conference, tested positive for coronavirus and was hospitalized. And by the end of the week, all 450 people who had gone to church that Sunday were placed under a voluntary quarantine. They were asked to stay home for 2 weeks. So this virus is spreading rapidly. So what do we do? And Mary and I have been discussing this, and we've begun to implement various protocols. First the hygiene, and then in that. Yesterday we got the news that the president has banned travel from England. Well, guess what that means? The Archbishop of Canterbury is not going to be able to come in April because there are not going to be any flights. And secondly, the British government has basically asked all people 75 years and older, of age and older, to stay home for the next 4 months. 4 months, that's till the end of June just about. So they're really taking this seriously. So even if even if the travel ban weren't in effect on the American side, on the English side, Lord Carey, being a public figure, can't be seen ignoring what the government says. So what are we doing here in Shepherd of the Hills? Well, Mary and I are going to meet with the staff on Monday, and we're going to Mary has been participating in these video webinars, they call it?
Yes,
Webinar. I attended another one during this past week on how the smart people are basically handling this. I have to say we're ahead of the curve. We instituted these our own protocols of not shaking hands and this and that about a month ago, 3 Sundays ago. And this past Monday, we finally got from the diocese what we're supposed to be doing. So, and the diocese has not yet followed all the other dioceses and saying, go forward or stop. They're just asking us what we're planning on doing. Well, I want to be cautious. And and Mary and I are trying to find, this is not, it's one thing for me to buy shot glasses. That's a decision I can make, and I can even spend the $8 that it costs to do that and not get in trouble. But interrupting our worship, changing our common life together is a decision that I and the members of the leadership team need to make in common. And on Monday, we're going to meet with the staff and sort of work through how we're going to proceed. And we'll probably put out announcements that we're going to ask groups to discontinue meeting. I met where our adult confirmation class. I said, and we basically agreed we're going to cease the class. I'm going to record the classes, and we'll put it on the website so if people want to see them, they can see them, knowing full well that we're hoping to get Lord Carey in the fall, so we'll have confirmation eventually, but I just don't want people to be placed in difficult circumstances. And I know many, many couples who want to be confirmed, want to be received, but they have been given advice to stay home. And I don't want to put them in a position of fighting their families or their doctor's advice versus coming to church. So confirmation class is going to be shelved. The Wednesday night Lenten series, I'm afraid we're going to not only stop the food, we're going to stop the class. Because I just need to be prudent and cautious. And if in 2 or 3 weeks this all passes by, then we start up again. But right now, I don't want to take the risk. We're an older congregation. Many Sundays when we have less, we probably have 70, 80 people. This time of year we have 130 people. There are about 50 people. not here right now, who should be here. It's not that I gave a stinker of a sermon last week. I thought I did a great job. They're at home because they're frightened. Saturday morning, I was on my Saturdays, I, the deacons, and the LEVs, and Saturdays and Sundays we do our rounds. The LEVs and the deacons sort of see the regular visitors. In other words, they see this, the Stevens minister sees the same person, one person at a time. The LEVs, every month or every weekend, they see these couples. I see the more one-off things. So I see the people go into the hospital, or I see, I'm sort of the floater, if you will. Well, Saturday morning, I went to the hospital to see Pete Gregan. Pete had to have some fluid taken off of his lungs, and I come to the hospital, Citrus Memorial, and everybody is lined up and they're doing temperature checks. See if you have a virus, or see if you have the fever. If you have the fever, you can't come in. This was Saturday morning. Now, I happen to have a badge, pastoral care, and they waved me through, which is probably not a smart idea. But, I went through, but they are introducing protocols, and if it gets much worse, they're going to shut things down. I then went to Brentwood Nursing Home to see Lee Cable. I can't come. Brentwood will not allow anybody in except in end-of-life circumstances. I asked Susan to call Stephanie, what's happening with the Key Center? And because we have ministries there, we go there, we do stuff, we're there all the time. And we found out from the administrators that beginning Monday, Key Center is not allowing visitors. So today, after this service, I am going to the Key Center. And I'm going to basically visit the people that we see there, because some of them will not understand why all of a sudden they're not seeing the faces that they want to see. The governor, I understand, Governor DeSantis is the one responsible for closing nursing homes. My daughter Claudia, who lives in Seattle, sent me a little text message saying the governor there has said no gatherings of more than 50 people. So that basically shuts down movies and restaurants and churches and basically social life. People basically run out to the grocery store and run home. Seattle is the epicenter in the United States of this outbreak, so that may be prudent. And I understand from the TV that we have our first case in Citrus County. So, what do we do? Well, in addition to buying shot glasses yesterday, these are the plastic ones. They're a little bit more, so I got those for 8 o'clock, because they're the welcome. I got the clear ones for this service, but I had more of them. We're going to pretend to be Methodists today. What will that mean? Well, I will be wearing gloves. And I'm proud of myself. I looked for gloves that would match the liturgical season. Thank goodness we're not in the summer where I'd have to find green gloves. But I couldn't find purple, but this is close enough. After we have the announcements and as we prepare for communion, I will go and wash my hands and then I will glove up. I will be the only one touching the bread, so I will basically do both sides. And I'm learning, because I've been doing this now, this will be the third service, so hopefully I'll get it right by this time. I will take the bread and I will drop it into your hand. I will not place it into your hand. I made the mistake last night of being gloved up and then placing it in your hand and then patting you on the shoulder. Well, that sort of defeats the glove purpose. I won't catch anything, but I'm going to pass it to the person next to you. So I will drop it. And so for those of you, and you know who you are, who hold your hands like this, so I got to wedge it between your thumbs, cup your hands for me. I will drop it in your hand. And then the butler, Mike and Linda, be shown aside with a tray. And on these tray will be the little glasses. And you take one, and you drink it, and then as you exit, you keep your little glass, and we have a tray on that side, and we have this little container here, and you put your empties in here. If you don't finish it, put it in here anyway, and we will dispose of it. Now, we have been figuring out how to do this right. Last night, Deacon Kathy poured each cup, and it took forever. So, before this service, Linda and I were in the back filling all the cups, so we don't have to do that. At 8 o'clock, we had about 10 left. And so I'm standing up there at the altar, downing shots with everyone. That really isn't a good look. So what we're going to do is when there are extras left, we're going to put them into the restroom and then pour them into the, what's it called? That thing that he's talking about, where you pour the extra consecrated wine. So I'm not going to be there doing shots continuously. So, and Mike and Linda are not going to be gloved because they are not going to be touching you either. You will take the cup from the tray. You consume it, and then you put the empties away, and we'll dispose of the empties and pour off the remainder. Why are we doing this? Well, don't take scientific advice from me. After every service, I was stopped by a well-meaning person and given a complete list of the vitamins I should be taking. So I should either be taking 4,000 or 6,000 milligrams of vitamin C. Vitamin D3, no. Vitamin B12, no. I've gotten all this wonderful advice, and that's why I think the stores are empty of everything. I'm not here to give you any healthcare advice. There's smart people who know how to do that. We are here, though, to prevent you from getting sick. We will cancel services if the diocese directs us to. We will continue without the extra ancillary things. We're going to add, now I can't make this an official because we need to have the staff, everybody be on the same page, but all of the things, save for worship, that we can cease, we're going to cease, so as to prevent the transmission of the disease. The government's plan, as I understand it, is to flatten the illness curve. People are going to get this virus. It's going to spread. But if it is spread over time, the hospitals will not be overwhelmed. I understand that a lot of people are dying in Italy because everybody's sick simultaneously. And they can't all receive medical treatment. The hospitals are overwhelmed. But if people first get sick in Seattle and it takes a month to spread to Florida and a month to go here, a month to go there, some of us will get sick. 90% of us will be miserable for a few days. 10% of us will be awful, 0.1 or 2, whatever percent will die. But we need to do it over time. And therefore, the best that we can do to prevent the spread of the disease through hygiene. Now, what happens to the life of Shepherd the Hills as we go on? Last week at our staff meeting, we discussed amongst ourselves, the clergy and the lay leaders. I said, I'm not going to compel anybody to go out and visit in the time of sickness. This has to be your own personal decision. And everybody, to a man and a woman, said, yes, we're going to continue the work that we're going to do. Yesterday, I visited a parishioner, and she would not open her door for me. We talked through the door, which was rather fun because she's a little hard of hearing anyway. So the neighbor now knows all of her concerns because we're shouting at each other through the door. She didn't even do it through the screen. She had to have it through the door locked, and she doesn't have one of those little ring things that we can talk normally. The problem I am seeing in our community is fear. We're probably going to get hit medically in time. I don't think there's any way to stop that. And medically, I can't do anything better than the next guy. I can take precautions, I can wear gloves, I can not shake hands, I can see that things that are under my control are sanitary and done right. But not much more than the next person. But what I and the clergy and what I hope you all will do will be a beacon for Christ in this time of fear. I think, now you may say, oh, this is just George, and he thinks this way about everything. But this is an opportunity to share the good news of Jesus Christ in a broken and frightened world. I'm not saying everybody who's frightened doesn't know Jesus, far from it. But what I am saying is this is our opportunity to love and serve our neighbor, to check into the person living next door or across the street who may not go to this church, who may care nothing about God and things like that, but it's our opportunity to demonstrate the love of Christ in the world. Not because in a month's time we'll fill this church up again, but because it's what we're supposed to do. To love and to cherish and to care and to be there for those who are lost and hurt and fearful. This is the call that Christ has given us. See, there's nobody who's outside God's love. That's the purpose of this morning's lesson. The woman at the well. The woman at the well is a wonderful, and I wish I had another 45 minutes because I'd go into it, but the story about the woman at the well is that no one is beyond God's love. Last week we talked about Nicodemus, the Mr. Churchman, Mr. Public Servant, the guy who was whiter than white. And yet Jesus is very brusque and hard with him. Today, Jesus, in our reading, goes to his town and he comes to a well. It's a hot day. And there's a woman drawing water from the well, and he asks her for a drink. And she's rude. Why would you, a Jew, ask me, a Samaritan? Let me put it in context to you. Pretend you're in Alabama in 1934. And there's a woman at a lunch counter, a white woman, and an old black guy comes up and says, "Give me something to drink." She would say, this is for whites only. This is for Samaritans only. Who are you to ask me? This is the context. The Jews and the Samaritans do not like each other. Jews and Samaritans would not eat together. They would sell things to each other, but they would not socialize, they would not marry, they would not eat together. And Jesus is asking this woman for a drink of water, which was a big no-no. His disciples are saying, you're hanging out with this sort of white trash woman, Why are you doing this, Jesus? And the Samaritans are saying, why are you hanging out with these dirty Jews? Jesus is by asking this woman for help, he is putting himself in a really strange situation. He's breaking the rules. Now this woman responds brusquely, and then Jesus talks about, he also is talking about the deeper water, the living water, that God is more and can take you and lift you and raise you. And this woman, and he's kind to her in her rudeness. And he offers her love and peace. And this woman, she then changes her tone. She says, "Sir, tell me how I can find this living water." And Jesus responds by giving her a call to repentance. He doesn't wag his finger at her. He doesn't tell her, before you are saved, you've got to get right, you've got to do this, you've got to do that. Jesus sort of goes a little circuitously. He says, well, call your husband to help. And the woman says, well, I don't have a husband. And Jesus, displaying his knowledge, says, that's right, you've had 5, and the man you're living with is number 6. And is not your husband. Well, why do you think this woman is drawing water at the middle of the day? In that time and in that age, drawing water was the woman's big social event. Everybody would go to the wells at the same time in the morning and the late afternoon before it got too hot. And they would talk and they would draw water and they'd do laundry. And that was their time to gab and socialize. And this woman has been expelled from that community. Now, if she's had 5 husbands and she's living with another one that's sick, she's probably been expelled from the community because she's sleeping with all the other women's husbands. She's not a very popular woman. Yet Christ does not beat her over the head. He asks her in a way that makes her face up to her sins, and he asks her to repent. And when she repents, he explains how to come to God. Through faith and love and kindness. And the story continues. But where I'm going with this is that last week we had Mr. Churchman, Mr. Public, Mr. Clean, and Jesus is harsh on him. And this week we have a slatterly, whatever the word is. We have a white trash woman, using good old Southern terms, who's got 5 or 6 husbands, rotten reputation, and none of the other women in town will have everything to do with her, yet she still can be saved. There's nobody outside the love of God. You've got to repent. You've got to face the sins in your life and ask to be forgiven. But it doesn't matter where you've been. It matters where you're going. And you've got to have your heart and mind set on Jesus Christ. Now, this is not an exact match to our situation here, because we're not better than the people around us. We're not worse off. We're our neighbors, we're our friends, we're our families. But we're called to love them, to be encouraging and kind, and build this community so that we get through this as a community. Some of us will get sick, and I pray to God nobody dies. But during this difficult time, I hope I and every one of you can be a resource to everybody else in need. We're still going to have little old ladies who won't open the door. We have to yell at them through the door. When I telephone her, I have to yell at her too, because she can't. No, it's not that unusual. But we need to be there for our friends and family and strangers. We need to be cautious. We need to be prudent. We're not Christian scientists. We're not going to say, oh, we think holy thoughts, therefore we're not going to get sick. It doesn't work that way. But we are believers in God and lovers of His creation. Show that.